I'm actually very encouraged with where the Colts are at. They're 6-7, but they've got the easiest schedule remaining. Richardson's healthy. He's playing the best football of his young NFL career. He's graded as the sixth best quarterback in his last three starts since coming back from that benching, of course, to Joe Flacco. And he's just in control of the offense. He's poised. He's confident. He's working harder. He's led two game-winning drives over those three games, and now he's got a chance to lead the Colts to the playoffs, which would be the first time we've done that since we had Philip Rivers as the starter. We also still have a chance at the division, which would be our first time since 2014. But Houston, they are at 8 wins right now. They win two of their next four games. They automatically get that because they have the tiebreaker over us, so they'd have to lose. But I'm focused on the seventh seed. And yes, if we're the seventh seed, we're probably playing Buffalo or Kansas City in the first round on the road, which is not ideal, but it's just the bigger picture here. Think of what this would do for the Colts' future. I mean, Anthony Richardson goes to Denver, knocks off maybe the best defense in football in their own building, and then leads the Colts to 10 wins. And then we go to the first round. Let's say we're at Buffalo. We get into a tight game with them, which we more than likely would lose. But still, I mean, that would set us up for something special moving forward. And if we just simply kind of fall apart at the end of the schedule, or we look like we did early on in the season, I mean, what really is the plan for next year? We're going to be talking about firing Chris Ballard, firing Gus Bradley, going out there and getting a tight end. I mean, we're going to have to do that regardless, but it's just not going to be a good look if I'm being real. But if Richardson plays well and we lose to Denver, I don't think it's the biggest thing in the world. But if we do lose to Denver and he plays poorly, I mean, yeah, it definitely would sting. But we just got to play our best football, man. We cannot be giving up 300 yards to Bo Nix, 3 touchdowns, and then we can't run the ball. We have to play our most complete game. We have to play our best game of the season. That's why we need it happening against Denver. We haven't really had just a complete game for 4 quarters, which makes sense just because, again, we don't have like Ballard, I don't think, put enough talent around the team, and also Richardson's a younger quarterback. But if there was ever a time for that to happen, it's going to be at Denver, week 15. Man, I can't wait. I cannot wait, bro. I just don't think you could have asked for a much better situation than we're in, given where we were at. Coming into the year, I thought the Colts would win double-digit games. I felt confident in them, but injuries happen, the benching, bad coaching. Maybe Ballard didn't do enough to, in terms of just building around this roster. We're weak at the tight end position, but the offensive line injuries, of course, certainly didn't help. But here we are with a chance to control our own destiny. If the Colts win their next 4 games, they're going to be 10-7. And if you miss the playoffs going 10-7, to me, okay, so be it. It is what it is. But the Colts, they won 9 games last season. So not only did we win an extra game, but Richardson started and finished the season, at least from a health standpoint. And next season, we're going to be talking about doing big things, not only winning the AFC South, but winning the Super Bowl. But obviously the Colts have to go out there and actually execute and get it done, or it essentially means nothing, right? If we do lose to Denver, our season's over. There's still going to be 3 more games to continue to build the next season, but we're already looking at next year. So this is an opportunity to go out there and to take care of business and to really have the biggest win for the Colts in a very long time. We had a chance week 18 against the Texans last season, and we unfortunately lost. But it's kind of like the same thing as this season. We lost to Jacksonville in Duval. I mean, we scored a lot of points, but we gave up a lot of points. What was that game? It was like 34-38, wasn't it? What was the score of that game? 37-34, so it was a shootout. We lost that. Some other games we've sort of let slip away. Both the Houston games, Minnesota, the Buffalo game, a pick 6 early on. There's a couple of the Green Bay game. Richardson had like 3 picks in that. So there's been multiple games this season that we've let just get away from us. But that's the past, man. All we can look at is what's ahead of us, and that's going to be Denver. I'm not worried about Tennessee, New York, and Jacksonville. We'll get there when we get there. But in terms of this game, Week 15 at Denver, the stakes couldn't be higher because being 6-7, if you lose that and go to 6-8, you're absolutely cooked because you could win your next 3. The Texans, they could, let's say, lose their next 4 and you win the division, but that's just asking for too much. You have to realize that Denver, you get the tiebreaker on them. You already have the tiebreaker on Miami, so you basically have a game lead on them because if you tie, you get it. So that's huge. And then, well, Denver, they've got maybe the hardest schedule in football the last 3 games of the season. I mean, let me know if there's a more difficult one. But I mean, at Los Angeles against the Chargers, at Cincinnati versus Kansas City. Maybe there's a team that has to close out like 3 straight road games or something like that. But I mean, we're talking about Joe Burrow, who's probably the second, third, okay, maybe the fourth best quarterback. I mean, I would say number one, people would say Mahomes, Josh Allen at two, and then it's either Lamar or you could go with Burrow. So you're facing off against Herbert. I would say is right up there. I would say Herbert's a top, probably the fifth best quarterback. So you're facing off against 3 top 5 quarterbacks in football to finish off the season. And if the Colts do win this, so they go to 7-7, the Broncos go to 8-6. Well, now all you need to do is just finish a game better than the Broncos the rest of the year. So they have to go play that schedule, and then we have to play our schedule, which again is the Giants, the Titans, and the Jags. I have a good feeling we're going to be able to win out those 3 games. And then for the Broncos, if they lose, let's say even just one of these next 3 games, well, they're going to be cooked. Because think about it. So if Denver loses to us and then they win 2 of their next 3, but we win out, well, think about it. They would go to 8-6 against us, and then let's say they beat the Chargers, so now they're 9-6. Let's say they beat the Bengals, 10-6, and then they lose to the Chiefs. They're 10-7. We're 10-7 if we win out, so that's huge. And I think it's being generous to say they're going to win 2 of those 3 games. I mean, I think they'll probably lose 2 of those 3. There's a chance they lose all 3 of them, right? Who knows? And then the Dolphins, well, we have a tiebreaker on them. The Dolphins went out. They go to 10-7. If we're 10-7, we have the tiebreaker. See, so the Colts, they have to win out. It's as simple as that. You cannot afford to lose a game the rest of the year, but it starts in Denver, because if you end up losing that game, your season's over unless the Texans lose all 4 of their next games. I still wouldn't want the Colts to just tank, because yeah, it's gonna suck finishing 9-8 again and missing the playoffs, which they would. The Broncos at worst they would be able to finish 9-8 if they beat us. So they'd have the tiebreaker over us, unless the Chargers or the Ravens just completely fall apart, which I highly doubt is gonna happen. The Chargers have the Raiders and Patriots the last 2 games, and then the Ravens, I mean, with Derrick Henry and Lamar, they play against at New York against the Giants. That gets them to 9 wins versus Cleveland. Well, they did lose at Cleveland, but I mean, even if they get the 9 wins, they're still like kind of chilling right there. So we're gonna have to win this game. But if we don't, let's just say we go to 6-8, you still want to win your last 3 games, and just because at least you give yourself a chance to make the playoffs. But it's also just building the next season. Yeah, having a higher pick's better. But for the Colts, it's about just getting reps. Richardson, getting him more comfortable, confident, poised into this offense to the point where he can develop. Look at Josh Allen. The dude just had 6 touchdowns against the Rams, and it was a loss, which is ridiculous when your quarterback has 6 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, and loses. But we want Richardson to get to that level. If he could even get close to Josh Allen, I mean, that would be a blessing for the Colts.